So, what's the real difference between owning a castle and, say, renting an apartment? You might think it's just about the size or the price tag, but it's way more than that. In the eyes of the law, they're two totally different worlds. And today, we're going to explore exactly what separates them. It really all boils down to this one question. This isn't just about paying a mortgage versus cutting a rent check every month. We're talking about two completely different legal frameworks for how you relate to a place. One is all about permanent control, and the other? Well, that's about having temporary rights. And that brings us right to our first big idea, these two distinct worlds of property. You can almost think of them as parallel universes. One is built on solid, immovable foundations, and the other is really all about the flow of time. Okay, so on one side you have what's called real property. Let's call it the fortress. We're talking about the land, the buildings, anything that's immovable. But it's also this legal concept called a bundle of rights that comes with owning it. And then on the other side, you have the leasehold estate, our apartment. Here, you don't own the building itself, you just have the legal right to possess it and use it for a certain amount of time. So let's explore that fortress first, shall we? What does it actually mean to hold that bundle of rights? This is the world of what the law calls freehold estates. At the very, very top, the king of the castle, if you will, is the fee simple absolute. This is it. This is the most complete, the most powerful form of ownership you can possibly have. It's the biggest deal the law even recognizes. And the key thing here, the owner controls everything, and that includes the right to decide who gets it in their will. But, and this is where property law gets really fun, the word absolute doesn't always mean with no strings attached. Sometimes, even a fortress comes with a very specific and very important set of rules. So check out this example of what's called a fee simple defeasible estate. You could be given a property but with a condition baked right in, like you own it as long as you use it for a hostel for traveling musicians. The moment you stop doing that, boom, your ownership is defeated and the property can go right back to the person who gave it to you. Then you've got something called a life estate. It's another type of freehold ownership. Your ownership literally lasts for the duration of a specific person's life. It could be your life or it could be someone else's. And because that time frame isn't a set number of years, right? It's indefinite, the law sees it as a form of ownership, not just a rental. All right, let's leave the fortress behind and step into the temporary kingdom of leasehold estates. This is the world of renting our apartment, where the single most important factor is time. Now, there are four main types of leases to know. An estate for years sounds old-fashioned, but it just means it has a fixed start and end date, whether that's 1 year or 10 years. A periodic tenancy is what most of us think of as a classic month-to-month lease that just keeps renewing. A tenancy at will is way more informal, with no set period, and either person can end it. And finally, a tenancy at sufferance, well, that's when a tenant just stays put after their lease is up without the landlord's okay. So, you know what kind of lease you have, but what about the actual rules of your little kingdom? Let's decode some of that fine print you'll often see, especially when it comes to commercial properties. In the business world, the question of who pays for what gets really interesting. With a ground lease, someone might just lease the land itself and build on it. In a percentage lease, which you see all the time in shopping malls, the landlord actually gets a piece of the action from the store's sales. And then you have the triple net lease, where the tenant is responsible for pretty much everything. The rent, sure, but also the taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance. It's a huge amount of responsibility. Now, what if you need to get out of your lease? This is a really important distinction. With a sublease, you basically become a landlord yourself to a new tenant. But, and this is key, you are still on the hook with your original landlord. With an assignment, you transfer your entire lease to someone else. They completely step into your shoes, and your relationship with the landlord is over. No matter what kind of lease it is, every single one comes with a fundamental right. It's known as quiet enjoyment. This is basically the landlord's promise that your possession of the property won't be disturbed. It's really the foundation of the whole tenant-landlord relationship. But what happens when that piece is disturbed, or when the temporary kingdom is supposed to come to an end, but doesn't? This brings us to our final act. What happens when a lease is broken? Okay, so a tenant has this really powerful tool called constructive eviction. If a landlord lets the property fall into such bad shape that it's basically unlivable, the tenant can leave and stop paying rent. But there's a huge catch. You have to actually surrender possession. You have to physically move out to claim it. You can't just stay there and refuse to pay. And from the landlord's perspective, There's a special fast-track legal process to remove a tenant called unlawful detainer. It's designed to move way faster than other lawsuits, and it's specifically for these 5 situations, from not paying rent, to breaking a rule in the lease, to just plain refusing to leave when it's over.
So, that old saying, possession is 9/10 of the law, what do we think now? As we've seen, the law really tells a tale of 2 properties. In one, ownership is this fortress built of rights. In the other, possession is a temporary kingdom ruled by time. It turns out, the real power isn't just in having the property, but in truly understanding the rules that define your right to be there in the first place.